I, Ajax West, am a weakling. No, not physically weak. I can chest press 300 pounds, throw a ball 89 miles per hour, and hit a tennis ball 100 miles per hour, and I can shoot a basketball hoop with both hands. I am a moral and perhaps emotional and mental weakling. But it wasn't always like this. I used to be strong mentally, emotionally, mentally, as well as physically. Then a woman burst into my life who can be called a real witch, next to whom Jezebel, Catwoman, Mata Hari, and Veronica Franco look like innocent lambs. Her name is innocuous, Beth Reynolds, but she herself is far from harmless. If the dictionary were honest, next to the antonym of the word moral, there should be a photograph of her. I had been happily married to Gloria for 4 years and was 27 years old when I started working for a small investment firm in Cary, North Carolina. Gloria took a job in Raleigh, just 10 miles from our small home in Cary, as a school psychologist. The owner of the company, Jake Reynolds, was a real prodigy. When I met him, he was 31 years old and already a millionaire, and his goal was to become a billionaire. That's why he founded Gravitas Enterprises LLC at the age of 27. One of the reasons Jake wanted to become a billionaire was because his father-in-law was one of 3 billionaires living in Cary, albeit the least rich of the three, if a billionaire could even be called less rich without being sarcastic. To say that Beth, 2 years younger than Jake, grew up with a sense of superiority is a gross understatement. Even though Beth was spoiled, she was not lazy. She had some online business that she kept secret, and one surefire way to get her furious glare was to ask about it. She's smart, but in a devilish way and in great shape. She claims to exercise 6 days a week, and no one can disprove this, although no one would dare even if they could. Before I moved to Cary, I was told that she once got angry when one of the fitness centers did not give her the attention she deserved, and her father simply bought it for her. She fired all the staff and hired her own people. She also renamed it Better Fitness, a stupid name, but no one dared to tell her that. Now, if she wants to work out alone, half of the hall is completely free for her. Although she can study alone whenever she feels like it, or when she's in a bad mood, Beth rarely does so. Her body looks amazing, and she loves it when others notice it, so she often visits the fitness center during the busiest times of the day, wearing skimpy workout clothes. Beth is not a classic beauty. However, like any good devil, her sex appeal is off the charts, and she has near-perfect butt and thighs, and her eyes can seem to pierce through steel. Her eyes are purple, only a fraction of a percent of people have purple eyes, and they have a large orbit, a particularly long palpebral slit, and her eyelashes are naturally thick and dark. She usually wears weird eyeshadow colors, which gives her look an even more otherworldly look. Gloria and I didn't meet Beth until we had lived in Cary for about 3 months. Gravitas Enterprises hosted a barbecue for all 25 employees and their families. As a normal man, I, of course, immediately noticed Beth. She wasn't the most beautiful woman at the party, but she was definitely the most erotic. Gloria and I were introduced to her by Jake. When I met her gaze and she met mine, it was eerie. Honestly, her eyes seemed to be talking to me. What they were saying was very disturbing. You want to have sex with me, and if you do, no other woman can compare to me, you pathetic weakling. After this unpleasant acquaintance, I don't even remember what was said, because I was so absorbed in what her eyes were telling me. I began introducing Gloria to other colleagues. Between conversations, Gloria whispered, "Beth looks as angry as they say she is." "What's her reputation?" I whispered back, since no one in the Gravitas office was talking about Beth. "The devil," was her short answer. Overall, I enjoyed the event. Many of the staff and their families were friendly except for 2 disturbing episodes with Beth. The first one happened while I was standing in line to get food from the grill. There were Italian sausages, brats, and hamburgers. Beth pushed her way in front of me, first looking into my eyes with her otherworldly gaze. "I hope you don't mind, Ajax, but I already have my eye on one particular sausage, and I need to get it," she chuckled. She then took an Italian sausage off the grill, placed it in a bun, and took a bite, looking at me before sauntering away. Later, When I was away from light conversation and walking with ice cream, Beth stood in my way. "How about a lick?" she smiled, piercing me with her gaze again. She took my hand and made a demonstrative lick of my horn. She then opened her mouth, showed me the soft vanilla ice cream on her tongue, then definitely swallowed it and said, "Yummy," before licking her lips and walking away, wagging her butt. But what was just as disturbing as Beth's actions were my actions that night when Gloria and I returned home. I had sex with Gloria. But this was not enough. Beth proved that she truly was the devil when, at night, my dreams were filled with images of her having sex with me. I managed to shrug off my initial infatuation with Beth in the following days and actually rarely thought about her until one Thursday, almost 2 weeks after the barbecue. Jake walked into my office. He arranged for me to meet with a high net worth prospect in Greensboro, North Carolina that morning. As I was getting ready to leave, Jake walked into my office and said, "Listen, Ajax, Beth has some kind of meeting in Greensboro this morning, and her Ferrari is in the middle of being serviced at the auto repair shop, and she refuses to drive other cars, and her driver father is busy. Could you give her a ride there and back?" What could I say to my boss? No, Jake, she is the devil, so I must avoid her at all costs. So I said what any new employee would say, "Sure, Jake, when will she be ready to move out?" "It looks like she's already sitting on the hood of your company car," he laughed. "She's no stranger to being rejected." When I went out to the company car that was assigned to me, we all had Mercedes. I got a blue one. Beth was actually sitting on the hood. Rising from the hood, she deliberately gave me the opportunity to look under her skirt. With a big smile, she said, "Thanks for giving me a ride, Ajax," as if I had a choice. I was about to walk around the car to sit in the driver's seat when I realized from her crossed arms, stern look, and stomping leg that she was waiting for me to open the door to the passenger seat for her. Not wanting to fall out of favor with her, I stopped, smiled, and opened the door for her. She again deliberately showed me her charms when she sat down on the seat. When I say that she showed her charms, I am not exaggerating. It was obvious that she was not wearing any underwear under her short skirt. Greensboro is about 60 miles away, almost exactly an hour's drive by the shortest route. I wondered if I could carry on a conversation with her during this time, but I didn't have to worry about the conversation. Beth was quite capable of carrying on an intelligent conversation, which she did for the first 40 minutes. The problem was not her conversation, but the fact that she insisted on keeping one of her bare feet on the console. Given her short skirt and lack of stockings, this meant that one of her gorgeous thighs was on full display the entire time. Luckily, I had mirrored sunglasses, so she didn't see me periodically glancing at her thigh, but given her outgoing nature, she no doubt knew it. After the first 40 minutes, her conversation changed. She started bombarding me with questions like a machine gun. Some of the ones I remember. "Your wife didn't tell you to tell her if I showed you something intimate. How often do you and Gloria have sex?" I answered, "Yes, no, I don't know," or "I'm too embarrassed to talk about it," to most questions. Some I just shook my head at. Her last question came as we were approaching the building she was about to enter. "You don't mind me asking you questions like this, do you, Ajax?" "Will it change anything if I say I'm against it?" I answered. "Of course not," she giggled. Then she handed me her phone and said, "Write down your number under the name Ajax." I wrote it down. Then she said, "Call me when you're done. My number is already in your phone." I don't know how, but I did it. Shaking my head, I drove to my prospect's office, which was about a half-mile from where I dropped Beth off. My meeting with a potential client went well, and he had a large portfolio that he wanted to transfer from his current managers. We shook hands an hour and a half later. Then he asked, "Are you free for lunch?" "I think so," I replied, "but I need to make a call." I called Beth. "Yes, Ajax." "Hi, Beth. I finished my meeting with Mr. Minshew, and I want to invite him to lunch. Does this fit in with your plans?" "Of course, pick me up in front of the building where you dropped me off. I'll call the Blue Denim restaurant and arrange a table. Tell Minch I'm treating him." And she hung up. I was stunned, but I was already beginning to understand that nothing should be surprising about Beth. I sheepishly turned to Mr. Minshew and said, Beth Reynolds, Jake's wife, wants to treat us to blue denim. Will this suit you? Hell yes, I'd like to meet her. They say she's the devil, but I've never met the devil before, he smiled. Damn, that must be her reputation, I said to myself. Lunch was fun. Beth was halfway decent, but she was sassy enough that Mr. Minshew laughed, and she tipped the waitress 100% of the bill because the food was great and the service even better. Minshew smiled widely as Beth hugged him goodbye, and he happily confirmed our deal with a firm handshake. As we drove away, Beth grinned. Did I make a deal? You definitely helped, I replied. Great, so if Jake ever asks if I showed myself to you, say no. Understood. It seems I'll have to do this. I don't want to fall out of favor with you, I grinned. You learn, if you play your cards right, maybe you'll get into my panties, big boy. Look, Beth, I'm not cheating. I'm committed to Gloria. By the time I'm done with you, you'll still be devoted to Gloria, but you'll also enjoy having sex with me. Now I need to take a nap because I have a 3-hour workout today. To answer your question, I'm not wearing any panties, so keep your eyes on the road because when I sleep, I like to lift my skirt. Of course, I never questioned whether she was wearing panties, and I almost ran off the road when she reclined the seat of the company car I was driving. It reclined almost horizontally and lifted her skirt. Although I did not have an accident on the way back, it was a real miracle because I couldn't help but watch. 5 minutes before arrival, I warned Beth that we were almost there, which fortunately caused her to lower her skirt and return the seat to its normal position. When we arrived at the office, she remained sitting until I walked around the car and opened the door for her. You train well, she said mockingly. To my great regret, when I returned home, I was still aroused, and after sex with Gloria, during which I again imagined Beth. Minshew became a client, and I got credit for it, which was a 5-figure bonus. Beth's behavior towards me continued in the same vein. There have been many outrageous incidents, but perhaps the most egregious was the one at Better Fitness. As part of Gravita's employee benefits, for $10 a month, we could get an unlimited membership to Better Fitness, which Beth has truly built into the premier fitness facility, not only in Cary but throughout the surrounding area. This was a good deal because the monthly premium could be charged to the Gravita's health insurance plan as preventative care, so virtually all employees participated. Sometimes I would go to the fitness center early to work out. One morning, I was there around 6:30 when there weren't many people there, and I was working out with dumbbells. Since almost no one was there, I didn't have a spotter on the 260-pound bench press, and I benched more than I should have without a spotter. I had already done 9 reps and was about to squeeze out the last one when Beth walked up to me in one of her usual skimpy outfits and sat on my hips. Ajax, you shouldn't expose yourself to me so carelessly, she chuckled. What the? I replied, struggling to keep my weight on my chest. I didn't post anything. With a devilish smile, she said, you exposed your groin without wearing a brace during your presses, so that was an open invitation to me. I remember making sounds of protest, but I don't remember exactly what I said. Despite incidents like the bench press attack, which was the most extreme case, I managed to keep my hands off Beth for several months, and then Glory got pregnant. Although I thought Gloria was beautiful during her pregnancy, and she still loved to cuddle up to me, as about 60% of pregnant women do, her sexual desire had decreased significantly, perhaps even more than most. Since my lust, fueled by Beth, was at its peak, and I adored sex with Gloria, I began to suffer. But at the same time, I tried to avoid Beth even more. I thought Beth was just spoiled and privileged, but when Gloria entered her second trimester, I realized that Beth was much more complicated than I thought. One day, Beth burst into my office. I was trying to keep the table between us and asked if I would help her with a charity event she was organizing in Raleigh the following week. Since I didn't know her as a charitable person, I assumed it would be something like a dance with high ticket prices and no participation from those who needed help. But I was very wrong. Every year I host a major fundraiser and event for the Special Olympics, and I need someone as big and dumb as a man can be like you, Ajax, to help organize everything, interact with the kids, and then clean up the equipment. I am waiting for your help from 8 in the morning until 8 in the evening, and of course your friends and family can come and watch. Here is a brochure about this year's event and last year's. Let me know by tomorrow if you can help. When I studied the brochures, I was stunned. Beth's money fully funded the event, but more importantly, she personally interacted with almost every child. When I returned home that evening, Gloria and her mother were in the living room. I told them about this event, showing them the brochures. Is the devil really also involved in charity? Gloria laughed, causing a displeased look from her mother. I'm surprised, I replied. She wants me to help from 8 to 8 on Saturday. You and Mom can come and watch at any time. Go help. Gloria smiled and kissed me, and my mother and I will come to the main event. That Saturday, I saw a completely different side of Beth. She managed the entire event with precision, interacted with every participant, and not only did everyone react positively to her, but it was clear that most people loved her. When one 7-year-old girl fell, not yet accustomed to her prosthesis, Beth picked her up and said, "You have to be strong. You have to get to the finish line, no matter what happens," and then walked next to the girl who was hobbling to the finish line, encouraging her every step of the way. Some in the audience began to cry. At this time, some kind of midge must have flown into my eye, because it also began to water. Overall, the day was a success for all participants. All of the Special Olympics child athletes, ages 4 to 17, had a great time, and the event raised over $150,000 for Special Olympics wheelchairs, prosthetics, and other equipment that can be used in everyday life. By the time I returned the last piece of equipment to the warehouse where we got it, it was about 7:30 p.m., and I was completely exhausted, since besides Beth, I had worked harder than anyone that day. At that moment, I was so tired that I fell into a chair and drank a bottle of water in one gulp. I didn't notice that Beth and I were left alone. She entered the storage room, closed and locked the door, and then took off all her clothes. "What the hell?" replayed in my head 1,000 times in seconds. She came up to me and said, "Since we're both already completely sweaty, now is the perfect time for us to have sex for the first time." I started to protest, but I couldn't take my eyes off her perfect body. Because while I found Gloria incredibly beautiful, especially in her pregnant state, her attraction to me had diminished significantly, which was not surprising. My thoughts were clouded, and the desire that had flared within me after a long period of abstinence had turned into something uncontrollable. "That was amazing, Ajax. I'm sure it was the best sex of your life." "God, you're so smug," I replied. I wasn't about to inflate her ego any further by telling her that this might actually have been the best physical sex of my life. When we got to our cars, she quickly kissed me on the lips and said, "Thank you for helping today. You did great, almost like you did in bed." Then she waited for me to open the driver's door, the door of her Ferrari, and waved her hand, pulling away. It was only when I returned home that I began to feel guilty and weak. How the hell could you be manipulated like that? I asked myself dozens of times. When I walked into my house, Gloria and her mom started giggling. "What's so funny?" I asked. "You look sweatier and more exhausted than I've ever seen you," Gloria quipped. "These kids have really tired you out, haven't they? They have to carry all the equipment back and forth. I need a shower more than ever in my life." Gloria gave me a quick kiss and then laughed, "Aw, gross," and then spanked my ass as I went to take a shower in the master bath. Unfortunately, the day of the Special Olympics marked the beginning of my loss of self-esteem. I always thought I was as strong mentally, and emotionally as I was physically, but after less than a month it became clear that this was not the case. Beth called me about once a week. She would call my business line and say something like, "Meet me at the guest house on my father's estate at noon." Then I appeared like an addict looking for a cure. Gloria gave birth to an 8-pound, 6-ounce, 20-inch boy, whom we named Kyle, almost exactly at term. I immediately fell in love with this little guy. I used this as an excuse to try to break things off with Beth. This backfired. When I didn't respond to her message, Beth came to my office one afternoon, locked the door, and then forced me to have sex. I couldn't afford to lose my job if Jake caught us or another employee hurt us, so I went back to answering her calls whenever she made them. It was also very awkward when Beth, with Jake in tow, although he obviously didn't want to be there, brought the fanciest, must have cost $3,000 baby stroller I'd ever seen to our house, about a week after Kyle's birth. Gloria's mom couldn't believe it until, after Beth left, I told her that Beth's father was a billionaire. Luckily, Gloria's desire returned about 9 weeks later. However, I wasn't one of those guys who thinks they can justify cheating by making a distinction between lovemaking and sex. I cheated. I was too weak to stop. You'd think things couldn't get weirder. They did it. About 2 months after Kyle was born, I was getting dressed after having sex with Beth during lunch. Still, in all her naked glory, she giggled, "You're going to be a daddy." I was puzzled. "I'm already a dad. You met Kyle." "No, I mean you're going to be a dad again. Yesterday I found out that I am 6 weeks pregnant," she smiled. "You didn't tell me that you stopped taking the pills," I muttered. "You didn't ask," she grinned. "How do you know it's mine?" "Because Jake can't have children. We went to the clinic together and chose a donor. He thinks that I followed up and got pregnant artificially, but I just paid the doctors at the clinic. I wanted the baby to be made the old-fashioned way." "But what if he looks like me?" I suffocated. "You are so unobservant, I sometimes wonder how you stumble through life. You look a lot like Jake if he didn't have the belly and glasses. You're 6 inches tall, light brown hair, blue eyes, a relatively small Roman nose and attached earlobes, except Jake's hair is slightly lighter and his Roman nose is slightly larger, and he's 6'1" and 1. 2 inches. You still have the same basic characteristics." As I collapsed onto a chair in the room and covered my face with my hands, I tried to think, and I think, without glasses and guts, Jake actually looked a lot like me. I was still in shock. "I didn't know you wanted a baby," I moaned. "Of course, and I know your baby will be beautiful. While Jake may be a little smarter than you and a lot more observant," she cackled. "You're the better breeder. You should be delighted." I was not at all happy. "Mom will take good care of you, and no one will ever know. Besides, you made me very, very happy, and that makes you happy, doesn't it?" she said with a smile a mile wide. I stood up, kissed her, and said, "Yes, seeing you happy makes me happy, but it will take me some time to get used to it." She kissed me again and then pushed me out the door. When I started to think about it, I realized that Beth didn't want anything from me, sex or a baby, so I had nothing to worry about. Then I looked on the bright side. If her desire goes down like Gloria's, I can finally get some self-esteem back. When I look back, it's almost funny that I believed Beth would react the same way Gloria did when she was pregnant. Beth was one of about 10% of women who have sexual desire has increased significantly. If I could escape, Beth would have sex with me every day of the week. As it was, I had to see her 3 times a week to keep her away from the office and my house, and her energy for sex was even greater than before pregnancy, if that's even possible, until the 3rd trimester. In the 3rd trimester, the desire remained, but my energy levels dropped significantly, which gave me a little respite. While Beth was pregnant, I had to see a specialist in nutrition, training, sleep, and other aspects to optimize my fitness, because sex with Beth 3 times a week, twice per meeting, with Gloria 4 days per week, fortunately, with 1 time per meeting. Without changes in my lifestyle, I simply could not withstand such a load. At this time, Gloria, Kyle, and I were doing great, and I was making a lot of money. But I couldn't stand the blow to my self-esteem and guilt that my relationship with Beth was causing. So I decided to persuade Gloria to change. I found a similar job in Nashville. Although it didn't pay as generously as Gravitas, I had earned and saved enough money working there that it wouldn't be an issue. and eventually Gloria wouldn't have to work outside the home anymore if she didn't want to. I was able to convince Gloria to move because she had relatives in Nashville, and it was closer to her parents' house than Carrie. I wanted to arrange for us to leave immediately after Beth gave birth. Beth gave birth to a 7-pound, 8-ounce, 19-inch-long baby girl, whom she and Jake named Lily almost exactly at term. Because of her condition, I couldn't have sex with her for 3 weeks, but I still came to give her massages twice a week, which she adored. I had already warned Jake about our upcoming departure 2 weeks before, and we were planning to move the week after Beth gave birth to Lily. I secretly visited Beth and Lily in the hospital the night they were supposed to stay there. Lily was a truly sweet little thing. My heart sank, but I knew I couldn't be a big part of her life. Beth, although tired, was happy and enthusiastic. I didn't have the heart to tell her that we were leaving because she happily announced that in 2 months we could start having sex again. Privately, I told Beth the next day that we were moving. First she got angry, then she became offended, and in the end she just burst into tears in my arms. She kissed me passionately goodbye and said, "At least I'll still have Lily to remember you by." Life in Nashville was good. Because I didn't have the devil to lead me astray, my self-esteem began to be restored and my guilt lessened. My life got even better when Gloria gave birth to another boy, Alex, about a year after we arrived in Nashville. Then we considered our family complete. Beth sent me emails with pictures of Lily every month or so, but made no attempt to see me and did not mention our past relationship in any of her emails. That is, she didn't try to contact me until she ambushed me at a financial planner conference in Austin, Texas, when Alex was about 3 months old. I went to the conference not only at the insistence of my employer, but also because I was there to meet a potential new client. The conference was to last 4 days and 3 nights. My potential new client, Pat Ramsey, was scheduled to meet me in my room on the first night of the conference, and we went to dinner together. From the messages exchanged in preparation for the meeting, I was convinced that Pat was a man. Imagine my surprise when I opened the door at 19:03 m. On the first evening of the conference, Beth stood there. With a big smile on her face, Beth walked past me and into my room. "I bet you're glad to see me," she said, standing on her tiptoes and kissing me on the lips. "Beth, I don't know what you're doing here, but I have a potential client coming to see me any minute." "Oh, you mean Pat Ramsey?" she grinned. "I arranged everything, asshole. You were always naive when it came to me." I was shocked. Well, I guess not completely, because in Beth's case, there was nothing surprising in her actions. "Why did you do the Pat Ramsey stunt?" "Pat Ramsey is a friend of my father, and he is really going to give you his business so that you come back from the conference not only with new knowledge, but also with a feather in your hand." "Cat, don't you want to know why I'm here?" Unfortunately, after quickly thinking about it, I realized why she was there. I sighed. I really wanted to turn her down, but I knew I was probably too weak to do so, especially since, well, she did look sexy. "You probably want another child," I sighed. "Wow, you're really catching up. The next 3 nights are my best period, and considering how quickly you did it last time, it must be duck soup," she cackled. 5 minutes later, we were having sex. I found Pat Ramsey as a new client with a $3 million portfolio. He transferred his funds to my wealth management firm without even meeting me, even though I spoke to him on the phone. Also, almost exactly 9 months after the Austin conference, Beth sent me a photo of herself and Lucy, her new little girl, in the hospital. Strange, I thought to myself. 2 boys with Gloria, 2 girls with Beth. What are the chances? I loved being a father. Oddly enough, however, when each of the boys was 8 or 9 years old, although Gloria still clearly loved them, she was no longer very involved in their lives. I, on the other hand, coached their baseball and basketball teams, took them to tennis lessons, went to every teacher meeting or open house, and was directly involved in everything they did. Gloria returned to work and seemed content to see the children at breakfast and dinner, help with homework from time to time, and go out when the whole family was away. Gloria's parents visited often and seemed to be more involved in Kyle and Alex's lives than Gloria usually was. When Kyle was 19 and a freshman at Northwestern College and Alex was 16 and in high school, Gloria told me that she really needed to talk to me on Saturday night instead of going out to dinner and going out to the cinema while Alex was at the party. She didn't beat around the bush. I want you to know that I have always loved you and the boys, but I am tired of being a wife and mother. I'm moving to the West Coast to follow my dream of becoming an artist, and I feel like I need to completely cut ties with my old life. Next week, you will be served with divorce papers, and I will move in next Saturday. The British have a word that almost describes my reaction: stunned, but even that does not convey the shock, sense of loss, and fear that her words evoked. Naive me, I had no idea about anything. Even later, when I thought long and hard about it, I could not remember any warnings. Well, maybe it was her interest in art over the past couple of years and her decreased desire for sex over the past year, but I thought these were normal phenomena since she was going through hormonal changes. Gloria and I talked for a long time that night. None of what I said, not a single one of my arguments, not a single question about details led to any result. She had already made her decision, and an important part of my life for the past 25 years was disappearing before my eyes. I wondered how this would affect Kyle and Alex. I perceived this as karma punishment for my weakness, for not being able to resist my affair with Beth. The divorce was amicable. After we secured the funds to ensure that all of Kyle and Alex's expenses were paid until they completed their graduate studies, we split all liquid assets 60-40 in my favor, and I kept the house. There was no alimony or child support since we were well off by that time, not as wealthy as Beth, but all our basic needs were covered for the rest of our lives. Since Kyle attended Northwestern, Gloria wasn't as deeply affected by his passing as it was Alex and I, but we all felt a significant loss. In fact, it took us 2 years and one event almost as strange as Gloria's departure to break us out of our depression. Almost exactly 2 years after Gloria left, when Kyle was 21 and starting the summer before his senior year at Northwestern, and Alex was starting the summer before his freshman year at Duke, both with summer jobs for me, I got a call. With area code 984, no number identifier. Since this was a strange code for a promotional call, I answered. "Hello, this is Ajax West." "Hey, do you know who this is?" Beth Reynolds' sweet, melodic, and sexy voice rang out. "Hi, Beth. I haven't heard for a long time. And I bet it was exactly what you wanted because you always felt guilty and weak around me," she laughed. How she knew this, I had no idea. But then again, she was perhaps the most insightful person I have ever met. No, believe it or not, I have actually thought about you fondly for the past 2 years. Is it because Gloria left? How did you know this? I asked, slightly surprised. Because I'm rich and curious, she laughed again. So let me explain why I'm calling. It didn't surprise me that Beth got straight to the point, because she's always been like that. Okay, I answered hesitantly. You probably haven't been following my life, it was true. But Jake died about a month after Gloria left for the West. He never took care of himself, so it's no surprise he had a fatal heart attack. I'm sorry to hear that. I always respected him, I answered sincerely. I know you liked him, she replied. After a sigh, she continued, Anyway, as you may know, Lily is now 20 years old and Lucy is 17, and they have always been interested in their biological father. One night recently, Lily, who will probably become a prosecutor because she can be so pushy and fires questions even faster than I did, tricked me into admitting that I didn't actually use the donor bank like me and girls have always been told Jake since they were teenagers. In general, they both want to meet you, Cy, and, besides, my parents, who are already 80 years old, but still vigorous and sane, want to meet. Suddenly, I felt a wave of emotions. I don't think it was nostalgia, but maybe something like that. Either way, I wanted to cry. Although I can't say I thought about the two girls, I did think of them on special occasions. I must have been quiet for too long or made strange noises because I heard Beth ask, "Are you there? Is something wrong?" I took a deep breath and replied, "Yes, I'm here, and no, nothing happened. I would love to meet them. What are you suggesting? Why don't you come to Cary this Sunday? We'll be here for a day or two and then head to our beach house in Wrightsville Beach for a few days." "Sounds like a plan," I said. "Can you pick me up at Raleigh-Durham Airport on Sunday?" "Of course, honey," Beth replied. We talked for another 15 to 20 minutes and ended the conversation. I thought for a long time about what to tell Kyle and Alex. I finally decided to give them a cryptic hint, and the next day at work I told them, "Guys, I'll give you an assignment for 2 weeks because I have to leave for a week on Sunday. There is a part of my life that you know nothing about. During the trip, I will determine to what extent I can tell you about this, and I will definitely tell you something when I return. Can you last a week while remaining curious?" They both bombarded me with questions, but I hardly reacted. Eventually, they both laughed and said, "I can't wait to find out." In the nearly 18 years that I hadn't seen her, I had no idea what Beth looked like because she stopped sending me pictures after Lucy was born. I knew she was 54 now I was 52 and wondered if she was still in shape. In fact, in some ways, I was in the best physical shape of my life because I was training 5 days a week and trying to keep up with two strong and active guys, now young men. When I saw Beth at the airport, I recognized her immediately. Although there were lines on her face, she had clearly dyed her hair, as it was darker than when I saw her 18 years ago. Her body still looked just as toned. We kissed, and I picked her up off the ground, spinning her around. "You look great, Beth," I said sincerely. "And you too," she laughed. Luckily, I didn't have much luggage, so there was room for my bag in her new Ferrari. "Aren't you tired of driving the same type of car?" I laughed. "Not one bit," she chuckled. "It's a hybrid, and it's even faster 0 to 60 miles in 2 seconds. She apparently noticed the skeptical expression on my face and stepped on the gas. I felt like I was taking off in the cockpit of a fighter jet. I believe you," I shouted, but by that time we were already going 60 miles per hour. Then she slowed down, laughing like crazy. Beth didn't hesitate to introduce me to her daughters. As soon as we arrived at her mansion, Lily and Lucy came outside to greet us. I know I'm biased because they are my daughters, but these were the most beautiful young women I have ever seen in my life. Luckily, they had my blue eyes and not their mother's purple ones. Otherwise, they were tall versions of Beth, only with prettier faces. They looked so similar that they could have been mistaken for twins. Lily was 5 feet 11 inches, Lucy was 5 feet 9 inches, and Beth was 5 feet 7 inches. I extended my hand to say hello. "No handshakes, Dad," Lily said, hugging me, and Lucy followed suit. "Damn," I said to myself. They seem to have inherited Beth's outgoing nature. We spent an hour and a half at lunch getting to know each other. The atmosphere was light and cheerful. In that short time, I felt like I had known them for years. They had a lot in common with Beth, but they got something from me too. I asked them to call me Ajax, and if over time we felt more trust in each other, perhaps we would move on to something closer. But for now, I said that Jake was the one who raised them. After an hour and a half of getting to know each other, serious questions began. "So, Ajax," Lily said, looking straight into my eyes, while Lucy and Beth also stared at me, "are you and Mom going to be together? She thinks you two are right for each other, especially because you are the best lover she has ever had." Beth almost blushed at these words. I would have choked if I had not already become accustomed to their impudent characters. "Actually, Lily, it is possible, but our relationship must develop differently. You see, when your mother and I were together 18-20 years ago, she was strong and I was weak. I never wanted to have an affair with her, but I was too weak to resist. Basically, I did whatever she wanted. Now I finally have the willpower, so if we have a relationship with her, it will be on equal terms." "How could you be weak around her?" Lucy laughed. "Mom said you could bench 300 pounds, and looking at you and touching your biceps when I hugged you, it rings true. I have never been physically weak. I was mentally, emotionally, and psychologically weak when it came to your mother. I cheated on my wife with her, which made me constantly feel guilty. If your mother and I have a relationship now, I will no longer be mentally, emotionally, and psychologically weak. I will be as strong as her, I said with a determined expression on my face, first looking at Lucy, then at Lily, and finally staring at Beth. Beth and I glared at each other for a few seconds, as if we were trying to win a stare time contest, while Lily and Lucy looked on with smiles. Finally, Lily broke the silence. "Okay, Ajax, why don't you show me how physically strong you are and play tennis with me?" "Don't bet on her," Lucy laughed. "She plays tennis for the university team." I changed into my tennis uniform and Lily and I went out to the tennis court on their property. Beth sat close to the court to watch and wore a short skirt, revealing her lack of underwear. I walked up to her and said loudly so Lily could hear, "Beth, go put your panties on." "No, I like the feeling of coolness." "Beth, put your panties on or I'll fuck you." "No, be patient, Ajax. This gives my daughter a slight advantage," she grinned. "I told you to put on your panties. If you don't do this and stay here, continuing to show off your nakedness, I will spank you again," I said, looking straight into her extraordinary eyes. "You're a bastard," Beth snapped, turning around and heading towards the house. Lily laughed so hard that she thought she was about to fall to her knees. "What's so funny?" I asked with a smile. "Mom has never, ever treated anyone like that before. I wish Grandma could see this. She always says Beth needs a spanking sometimes to get her in shape." We started playing. Lily was really good. The first set was 4-3 in her favor when Beth returned wearing a bikini and a light cover-up. She sat on the bench and cheered loudly for Lily. "Defeat that bad guy, girl," was one of her favorite cheers. The match ended the way I wanted. Lily beat me 6-4, 7-5. I wanted to put on a good performance, but I also wanted her to win. In fact, I only had to play along on one play to get the result I wanted. She was that good. Lily smiled from ear to ear. "You're playing really well for an old man." "Did you see what happened to your mother? The same thing could happen to you, baby," I replied with a smile. "You'll have to catch me first," she teased me as she ran towards the pool. I was right behind her when she stunned me by diving into the pool in her tennis attire, sneakers included. I hesitated for a moment, but then I also dived and swam after her. Lucy caught up with me from behind and began to lower my head under the water. Then Lily turned to me and Beth jumped on top of me. All three, laughing like crazy, tried to drown me. I decided that the best solution was to give up, because I definitely didn't want to accidentally injure them. When I finally asked for mercy, they did not calm down until each of them had drowned me once. I accepted the punishment and then pretended I was going to catch up with them as they climbed out of the pool laughing. I caught Beth. Holding her facing away from me, I squeezed her in my arms and whispered in her ear, "I'm going to sleep with you tonight, and you won't even know what's happening, you devil." "Do you think that after your punishments I will let you sleep with me?" she snorted. "You won't have a choice," I snapped back, then turned her face towards mine and kissed her as Lily and Lucy whistled mockingly. We met Beth's parents for dinner at their mansion. I never met them when I lived in Cary. They were kind, but a little wary, because they had recently found out that their daughter had cheated on her husband with me, and they might have thought that I was a gigolo. However, after 10 minutes of talking on their veranda, as our drinks were being served, Lily intervened. "Grandma, you would love to see this. Mom didn't want to do what Ajax said, so he showed who was boss." Lucy and Lily giggled. Beth looked at me angrily. Beth's father Arnold looked puzzled, and Beth's mother Ruth broke into a wide smile. She got up from her chair, came up to me, and kissed my forehead. "Ajax, I've been saying for 40 years that this girl needs a couple of good spankings, and I'm glad someone finally did it." Beth snapped, "Don't encourage this beast. I'll probably kick him out tomorrow." "Then he can stay with us," Ruth replied. I was pleasantly surprised at how well the dinner went. Arnold and Ruth seemed to warm up to me, It was obvious that Lily and Lucy had a great relationship with their grandparents, and Beth oscillated between flirtatiousness and aggression. As we left, Ruth gave me a heartfelt hug, Arnold shook my hand, and Lily and Lucy each grabbed my arm as they walked away with me, while Beth walked behind. Lily got behind the wheel, and Beth sat in the front seat with her in Lily's car, as Lucy quickly climbed into the back seat with me. Beth barely spoke during the 5-minute drive back to their mansion, while Lucy, Lily, and I chatted happily. When we returned, Lily and Lucy went straight to their rooms, apparently to text or talk to friends. Beth led me into one of the guest rooms with a tense face. "This is your room for the night. I haven't decided yet whether you'll stay here longer." "Where is your room?" I asked. "At the end of the corridor," she replied, pointing to the left. I picked her up and headed towards her room. "What do you think you're doing, moron?" she asked. "I'm going to get my reward," I said. "If I get kicked out tomorrow, today I'll take the opportunity with the hottest 50-year-old woman in America," I continued with a smile. Just before we passed out, Beth whispered, "I missed you." "I missed you too, goddess," I replied, also in a whisper. The next morning, Lucy made fun of Beth and I for being too loud. "God, Mom, it sounded like you hadn't made love in 2 years. Oh, wait, that's what happened." She laughed at her joke. Beth ignored her, and I just smiled. Our 4 days at the beach house were wonderful. Friends Lily and Lucy came to visit us, both boys and girls. There were many surprised looks when I was introduced as our biological father. Of course, one of the reasons this time on the beach was so great was because sex with Beth was the best sex I've ever had, even though we were in our 50s instead of our 30s. Of course, we didn't have the same stamina as when we were young, but we made up for it with hugs, massages, and tenderness. Despite the intensity and sportiness of our sex, it was the first time since meeting Beth that I felt real emotion during our lovemaking. It was obvious that she felt it too. Another big reason why these days were so happy was that I was really starting to build relationships with my daughters. Our personalities seemed to mesh well, and I did not try to give them directions in any way, but only answered their questions honestly if they asked for advice. There was one incident on the beach that, although unpleasant at the time, ended up being important because it clearly showed that I was completely on their side. The 4 of us, along with Lily and Lucy's 4 friends, were playing beach volleyball near their house. As we were about to leave, 2 burly guys who appeared to be drunk or nearly drunk approached us and began making comments about Lily and Lucy, who, in my objective opinion, were the most beautiful young women on Wrightsville Beach. When one of them grabbed Lily, I stood in his way and told him to get out while he still had the chance. There was a fight. "Apologize to these worthy girls," I growled. "Forgive us, this won't happen again," the first one squeezed out. I kicked the second one lightly to encourage him. "Yes, girls, forgive us. We don't know what hit us. We are very sorry." With the remnants of their dignity, they quickly left. When they were almost out of sight, Lily came up to me, her beautiful big eyes shining, and she said, "My hero," then kissed me on both cheeks. A few seconds later, Lucy did the same. "No one will touch my girls," I said. As we walked back to the house, Beth grabbed my hand tightly. "Tonight you will get special sex," she hissed at me. When we returned home, we planned to immediately prepare dinner. "Give us half an hour," Beth said to Lily, and she dragged me into our room to the taunts and taunts of Lily, Lucy, and their friends. The last day at the beach and the ride back were full of questions from Lily and Lucy about their stepbrothers. They were full of desire to meet them. I promised that I would arrange this within a month. They were especially excited that Alex would be attending Duke, so he would be nearby. When I said goodbye to Lily and Lucy with a big hug, I really felt like we were getting closer, and my heart was soaring with joy. Beth insisted on driving me to the airport alone. On the way, she asked, "Would you like to move to Cary? You can live in my house for free," she grinned. "Beth, I will seriously think about your proposal. I need to think about this. I hope you can make a decision before September, because I am now the head of the Special Olympics program in the southeastern United States, and I will really need your help at the event in Atlanta in September." I smiled. "You really are a complex person, Beth. We will talk about this in detail when I come with my sons to introduce them to their sisters." The kiss Beth gave me goodbye could have set off the fire alarm. When I returned to Nashville, Kyle and Alex started asking questions before we even got into the car for the drive home from the airport. I told them that the next day, Sunday, we would take the entire morning and, if necessary, the afternoon to discuss everything. They were satisfied and went on a double date that night, even though they returned at 2 a.m. They walked into the kitchen early Sunday morning refreshed and ready to talk. After we quickly ate our omelets and toast, we each grabbed a cup of coffee or a glass of soda, as was our custom, and we headed into the living room. First of all, I want to admit that when we lived in Cary, I was a wimp. I was not weak physically, but mentally, emotionally, and psychologically, I was pathetic. There was a woman named Beth Reynolds who had a reputation as the devil, I began. "Who the hell is the devil, Daddy?" Alex exploded. "Well, the classic definition is a demon in female form who is said to have sexual intercourse with men in their sleep. Well, obviously there is no such thing as a real demon, but this woman was close to it. She has violet eyes with an ethereal personality that is impossible to believe unless you see her, a perfect hard body and a personality so extraordinary that it seems incredible, it is beyond your experience. For some reason she wanted me, and there was nothing I could do to stop her from seducing me." I sighed. "Cheating on your mother was the worst thing I've ever done in my life, but I was powerless." They both looked at me like I was crazy, weak, a liar, or something all at the same time. This didn't stop me from continuing. "Beth intentionally got pregnant with me twice and had 2 girls, Lily and Lucy. Here are their photos," I continued, pulling out glossy 8x10 photos from the envelope. "One in a dress, the other in a bikini, and the third is in shorts and a top." As Kyle and Alex looked at them with wide-eyed eyes, I said, "I don't understand because they're your stepsisters. But as you can tell, they are the hottest girls you've ever seen." After telling them to calm down, I continued, "I've been with them and Beth for the last 6 days and have really gotten close to them. Their personalities are as beautiful as their appearance. They are 20 and 17 years old. Lily is the tallest, the oldest. I told them about you guys, and they are looking forward to meeting you." Until I showed Kyle and Alex pictures of their sisters, I felt like they weren't comfortable with what I was telling them. Suddenly, everything changed. Although they couldn't have a romantic relationship with them because they were related, knowing my hot-blooded sons, they thought, "Such hot girls must have hot friends too." We talked for the rest of the morning until we had discussed everything I knew. One of Kyle's last questions was, "Are you planning a relationship with the devil? She looks awfully attractive for a 54-year-old woman." "I'm not sure. I think the spanking may have made her realize that if we were in a relationship, I wouldn't be fooled. We'll see," I replied. "Looks like you have a crush on her dad," Alex smirked. "From everything you said, reading between the lines, she's your best ever and maybe worth it." "No comments, and watch your language or I'll have to spank you," I said, laughing. As a result, all 3 of us fought until I gave up. They're both my height, 30 years younger and considerably stronger, but we still need to have a little youthful bonding from time to time. They were excited about the trip to Cary. That same day, I agreed that I would go there the next week and stay there for 7 whole days. Since the boys worked for me, they could get time off. It only took 3 days in Cary for Kyle, Alex, Lily, and Lucy to act like teenagers, young 20-somethings who have lived together their entire lives. Lily and Lucy's friend, who looks like a version of Lucy, but with black hair and brown eyes, is going to Duke next year in the same class as Alex. I think the poor boy is already lovesick. The boys were a little wary of Beth at first. However, seeing how Lily and Lucy acted calmly around their mother, and seeing how Beth and I touched each other all the time, I think they became colder towards her. In the 7 days we were together, Beth and I had more serious conversations than either I or she had with all the people in our lives combined before. We were both frank. I told her that I don't know how we can trust each other since we are both liars. She told me that despite her reputation, with the exception of 2 one-night stands, since she married Jake, she had never had sex with anyone other than Jake and me. The way she said it and how emotional she was when she said it makes me believe it's true. I think everything was resolved, at least in my opinion, when on our last night before the boys and I flew back to Nashville, we both blurted out, "I love you." I was completely taken aback that I said that. Then I started thinking about it. By the time I fell asleep with Beth on my shoulder, I knew there was a 99% chance it was true. By the time Special Olympics Atlanta came around in mid-September, I had sold my interest in my Nashville business, my house was up for sale, and all my furniture and the boys' things that weren't with them at school were either in storage or in storage. Beth's mansion. Kyle and Alex had no problem coming to Beth's home in Cary on holidays and school breaks to see their sisters. Beth and I signed an exclusive contract. Since I was giving up my home, the contract also stipulated that she could not kick me out of her home without giving me 3 months' notice. She cried when I insisted on this clause of the contract. "I love you, I don't want you to ever leave," was her response, but she agreed to the terms. I was Beth's first volunteer at the Atlanta event, and her organizing skills and money made everything go smoothly. We're starting another charity together in Cary, where I'll be the volunteer executive director, and we'll see if we can spend the rest of our lives together. Who knows, maybe we'll even get married. Amazingly, I now like her just as much out of bed as in bed. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think, click to the next one. Click to the next one. Click to the next one.